Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Chase here. I'm coming at you guys with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of Logic and Ableton. Um, these DAWs are amazing DAWs in their own rights, but I'm just going to talk about the pros and cons of both, why I like using Logic for certain scenarios, why I like using Ableton for certain scenarios, and if you had to pick one, which one would I pick? So I'm going to go through all that stuff in today's video. So let's start off with Logic. Pros, it's pretty cheap. For $200, you get an amazing DAW with tons of built-in sounds that are pretty much ready to go right off the bat. Um, if I go just, for example, I can look at these drum sounds, some really nice acoustic kits, um, some really nice electronic drum kits. The mallets are really good orchestral sounds. I use the harp a lot, just straight from Logic. You got this vintage Mellotron sound. So pretty much in terms of samples, you're pretty set. They've got Alchemy, which is a plugin that's pretty similar to Omnisphere, where you just got a ton of preset samples that you can just use right away. So if I want to just pick one, I can and load it up. And this is a huge sound library, just tons of sounds that just come right with the DAW. So if you have no plugins and you're starting off in Logic, you're gonna have a lot of stuff that you can use at your disposal that's gonna sound really good. They also have a lot of different synths. So there's a vintage synth plugin. There's like this ES2 is very similar to like a Serum. It's just a triple oscillator synth. Just tons of really good stuff in here that you can just use right away. Same goes with the plugins. So with the EQ, you have a really good EQ that you can use. Just really top-notch visual EQ. Good compressors, a lot of different really good effects. You got pitch shifter, a nice reverb. Space Designer is a very good reverb. So you're pretty much set with your plugins and what you can do. So you're just great and good to go once you buy the DAW. The other thing I like about it is it's good all-around DAW. So whether I'm doing electronic music or something maybe with more guitars, it's very good in terms of recording audio. So like right here, you can do like multiple takes of comping and pick which take you want to use, which is also good for recording vocals. So you can comp different takes, which is something Ableton doesn't have. They don't have comping. And the other final thing I have to say, pro-wise, is the mixing flow is amazing to me. I just love this look of it looking exactly like a mixing board in the mixing window. It kind of reminds me of an SSL. Pretty much everything's stacked right here. If you got an EQ on it, it'll show it to you if you're using the visual EQ. So you're pretty much, and then you have all your sends right here. So I tend to use like multiple reverb sends. So maybe I use a plate, maybe I use a longer ambient reverb. That's all going to be right there for you, very easily accessible. So that's what I really like about Logic. My cons tend to come more so on the side of electronic music and sampling. I feel like it's not the best for sampling stacked up against Ableton. When I want to sample, let's say I want to use MIDI drums, I'm more of a MIDI guy. I like playing my drums into the song. I've got to load up my Finder, go into my Finder, go to my drums, look through my packs. You know, if I'm looking for a snare, maybe I go to this pack, look through my snares. Maybe I don't like one. I've just got to go through packs and packs of drums. In a second, I'll show you how I actually do drums a bit better on Ableton, but I really don't like this. It feels like another extra step. And once I do load up the drums, so let's load up a drum sample. I'll show you what's the kind of downside to Logic. I load up at this snare, okay? Let's load it up. When I press C1, it's just the basic sample. If I click any of these keys above it, it's not gonna sort of pitch it like a keyboard, which Ableton does automatically. So I feel like a lot of things compared to Ableton and Logic in regards to sampling and electronic music take a little bit of extra steps. The other thing about Logic that's a con is there's not really any third-party plugins, like whereas Ableton has Max for Live, so you can download a granular synth. Ableton really doesn't have anything like that. And then I feel like it's just not as creative as Ableton. It's more of a straightforward linear DAW. So I feel like you know, if you're a pop producer, um, maybe you do a lot of guitars, you rock, you do a lot of live tracking. Ableton is more so the DAW for you. You can make electronic music. I'm not saying you can't. I just feel like Ableton's a bit better than Logic for that. So let's hop over to Ableton and I'll show you my pros and what I like about it. It's really creative. I feel really inspired at using it. Secondly, I feel like the workflow is super fast. I feel like and a huge reason is this search function. Instead of having to go into Finder, let's say I want to get a snare for a song I'm working on. I can just type in snare here, go to all results, and it'll bring up every single snare that I have in my library. So maybe I'm looking for a certain snare and then I stumble upon one that I may have never even looked in that pack before, but I just find it and I'm like, oh, well, this is actually better than what I was looking for, so I'm going to use that. So I tend to find that this search function is just unparalleled. Like, I don't really think, like if you go into Logic, for example, and I type in snare, it's only going to come up with the Logic snares, and it's not even all the Logic snares, really. So I feel like Ableton has the edge in that regard. This is super huge. I don't have to go to Finder. Everything's right in my DAW. The next thing for me is the sampling. So taking that snare example, let's go ahead and load up a snare here. So here, can you beat snare? 14. Let's try 17. Cool. So I load it up. I'm pressing my A key, which is like C1. If I want to play it a little bit higher, pitch it differently, I can hit G, that's a fifth up. It's pretty much like a keyboard. I can play the snare like a keyboard all over, which you can get some really cool sounds if you're using like synth one-shots, or maybe you load up a voice sample and you can play it like a keyboard. But it's just so quick at the snap of fingers, which Logic really is like, takes extra steps to get there, which is why I think Ableton is so creative. I really like the third-party plugins, like these Max for Live things that you can do. They have Granular 2, which I use a lot for a lot of electronic music. Yeah, and like I said before, the workflow's insanely quick. Now I'm going to go for the cons. When you're recording audio, you don't really have a comping system. It just kind of loops over itself. I find when you're doing guitars, they have a little amp simulator, but it's not that great. You've got like, yeah, only a couple settings compared to Logic's, where in Logic's you've got, here, let's see, you've got your amp designer with more presets, a bunch of distorted, clean tones, amp tones, simulating vintage amps, and then you've got your huge pedal board, which, let's get that up here. So this is if you were recording audio, then you've got your pedal board. So if you're playing guitar or bass into this thing, you're pretty much set on tones. You're good. Whereas I feel like if you're with Ableton, you've probably got to buy a guitar rig or something else, because this amp simulator just really doesn't do it for me. You've got these like little presets. I find it's really buzzy too. So I feel like Ableton's not the best for audio recording. It can be, if you get a guitar rig, it can definitely be done. I just prefer Logic in that regard. Ableton, another con, is more expensive than Logic, but it does have more features. So in terms of sampling and stuff like that. The downside to Ableton as well is you don't really have a lot of stock plugins. And I feel like they're worse than Logic's. Like this flanger, I don't like it. Why? It just doesn't sound as good. It just, these plugins just feel weird to me, and I feel like they just don't sound correct. Like this phaser, I mean, I'm sure I can get used to it, but I just feel like the ones in Logic are a lot cleaner, simpler, and better. The delays in Ableton are pretty good, though. This ping pong delay I like to use a lot. But I feel like the reverb is not great in Ableton. I'm using Valhalla reverb. So Ableton to me is a great DAW. Oh, the other thing I wanted to talk about before I talk about that is mixing. This mix window is, I mean, it's similar to the mix window from Logic. I just feel like it's not as clean. Um, Also, like if you're panning something, you're just kind of guessing. Whereas if you're panning something in Logic, you have that number right there to tell you. It's just a lot more cleaner. And I think you can get that number to show up, but um, it's a little bit more difficult. Oh, I was about to forget though. The other great thing about Ableton is, like, let's say I load up a plugin. Let's say I do load up this ping pong delay. I can just click on this knob and the automation comes right up. So if I want to automate the feedback, I can do that immediately. Whereas whereas with Logic, I do have to go, let's say we load up a delay, load up echo. I can't just click on this knob and have the automation work like that. I've got to actually go in here into this menu, find the delay, go to the feedback, which is just another extra step which Ableton gets rid of that makes it a little bit more creative and faster. Yeah, and so, but I tend to enjoy still mixing a little bit more in Logic. It just feels sharper to me. So that's pretty much the pros and cons of both. If you want, I can show you guys another video, project files, and compare some full songs that I've done in Ableton to Logic. Just let me know if you guys want that. So if you like the video, just please like and subscribe it. I really appreciate it. And that's the video, guys. Yeah. So I would recommend, if you are doing more so electronic music, I would lean toward Ableton. Anything with heavy sampling like hip hop, I would definitely lean toward Ableton. Whereas if you're doing pop or something, I feel like pop is perfect in Logic because you get that mix of good vocal, good audio, and good enough sampling and production to make everything come together. I mean, it can definitely be done in Ableton, but I just feel like Logic's a bit cleaner for that. And if I was a beginner, I definitely would recommend starting off with Logic because it's just a cheaper option with way more plugins at your disposal off the beginning when you just buy it. So if you like producing and you want to upgrade to Ableton, I would suggest buying Logic first and then maybe upgrading to Ableton and buying more plugins. Ableton Bare, yes, you can do a lot of stuff with no plugins, but I do feel like if you want to make all the music and all the sounds that you have in your head, you probably need, like, I mean, you can use Wavetable or Operator, but I feel like you kind of want to use Serum. Maybe if you bought Omnisphere as well and Guitar Rig, you would be set in Ableton. But if you're a beginner, that's a lot more of an investment than just buying Logic. So actually, yeah, that's the real end of the video. So if you liked it, please like it. Subscribe to my channel if you want updates on when I'm uploading. I'm trying to upload every week now, pretty much weekly. And let me know in the comments below what videos you want to see. And that's it, guys. I'll see you guys later.